Hello and welcome. You're watching the Tov Jewish News channel. With us today is Marc Zell, chairman of the Republicans overseas in Israel. Hello, Marc.
Sameach.
Marc, you made a very interesting claim when we talked to you before the interview. You said that there is a link between the Biden admin and the Iranian government, as if there are people from the Iranian government, their representatives, sitting in the Biden admin. And this would explain a lot of things. It would explain why the Biden administration doesn't fully support Israel and their request to enter fuel tanks into the Gaza Strip. Could you please develop on your claim and explain us how does that really work?
Sure. In order to answer your question, Michael, I need to go back to the Obama administration. It's often said that the Biden administration is simply a third term for Barack Obama, which I happen to think is the case. But during the Obama administration, even when Barack Obama was running for president in 2008, he indicated that he was going to have open a new chapter in the relationship between the United States and Iran, and really formulated a lot of his foreign policy in the Middle East around a rapprochement with the Iranians. And so after he came in, one of the first things he did is he created all the conditions for the Arab Spring. You saw how that worked out all over the Arab world. How many hundreds of thousands of Arabs died. And he opened a channel towards the Iranians. Now, before he was succeeded, Prime Minister Netanyahu at the time was able to convince the Americans and the world at large about the Iranian nuclear threat. And he was able to get the United States and others to impose sanctions on Iran. But 2 or 3 years after he succeeded in doing that, the Obama administration began to create this new arrangement with Iran, which ended up being incorporated in this agreement called the JCPOA, which basically gave a green light for Iranian nuclear weaponization over a period of time. And the Biden administration tried to get it through Congress. They couldn't do that, so they just created this agreement, and they brought in a fellow that was an expert in Iranian affairs. His name was Robert Malley. Now, Robert Malley, interestingly enough, is Jewish, and he was extremely anti-Israel, remains so, very pro-Iranian. The Obama administration had other people in the administration, including Valerie Jarrett, his close advisor, who was born and raised in Iran, and so on. A lot of Iranian contacts. After the Trump administration left office in January 2021, the first thing that the Biden administration did was to bring all these people back in and to reestablish a policy to renew relations with the Iranians. And Robert Malley was brought in basically to head up that entire effort. And when he came in, he brought with him 2 or 3 people that were placed in high-ranking positions within the Biden administration, in the White House, in the Pentagon. Not long ago, it was discovered that Robert Malley was actually spying for the Iranians and cooperating with them in a way that was totally inconsistent with his security clearance and the national security interests of the United States, and he was fired. But the people that he brought in, and I don't remember their names precisely, but they're still functioning inside the Biden administration. In fact, there have been numerous reports in the mainstream press that these people in the Biden administration are coordinating with the Iranian foreign ministry and the Iranian government, about policies concerning the Middle East. I mean, this is incredibly it's incredible information that the United States administration would have within it as key members, as key advisors, persons who appear to have dual loyalty between the United States and Iran. So this is the situation we're facing at the moment. It's highly troubling, and I imagine there will be congressional investigations into this in the near future, and we'll learn more about the extent of Iranian influence in the American government.
But how does the Biden administration itself see the relations with Iran? Do they really think that they could normalize the American-Iranian relations to a point where, we will live in this kumbaya, la la land, and Iran will see America as a real friend, quote unquote? Or because I really don't see the logic behind Americans' actions towards Iran.
Well, it's a direct carryover from the Obama administration. The idea is that the Iranians can be reasoned with if America provides them with the tools or the assets that the Iranians are looking for, primarily money. Okay, then everything is possible in terms of restructuring the Middle East, and what would mean turning the American government more towards the Iranians, and that would also mean abandoning or weakening the ties between the United States and Israel, and most importantly, those Arab countries who during the Trump administration signed peace agreements with Israel, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Morocco, Sudan, those countries now would also be left in the lurch as Americans turn to Iran, and that's why you saw during the Biden administration the Saudis reaching out to the Iranians, reestablishing diplomatic ties. You see the Russians being involved and the Chinese and try to encourage that diplomatic development. It's very, very troubling. And the administration has authorized the release of billions of dollars, okay, in funds that were held by the United States or in Qatari banks, for example. There's a dispute about what's going to happen to those $6 billion. But the American government also gave a green light to other governments like South Korea to release Iranian-held assets. The South Koreans, I understand, their banks were holding in excess of $10 to $12 billion, which were released to the Iranians, who immediately, when they got access to these funds, began diverting them to support their terror proxies in Yemen and Hamas and the Hezbollah. And they're also very close in supporting the Venezuelan government, Maduro, who's now threatening to go to war against his neighbor in Guyana. I mean, it's lunacy. It's diplomatic foreign policy lunacy. But that is what the Biden administration, like its predecessor, Obama administration, thinks should be done in the Middle East. It's so misguided, so dangerous, and very destabilizing.
So, in light of that Biden's admin lunacy towards Iran, what will the Middle East look like if Biden will have the power to change everything as he sees? Will we see a strengthening of Iran? Will we see America going to war with the Houthis and finally appeasing all that region of the Red Sea, so there can be trade in that area? And will Saudi Arabia be strengthened? What policy exactly is the Biden admin pursuing in the Middle East?
Well, that's a very good question. It's very difficult to understand exactly what the American foreign policy is in the Middle East. It's very confused, particularly now that the war has broken out between Israel and Gaza, and the Iranians. For example, we didn't talk about this yet, but the Iranians, through their proxies, are attacking American bases in Iraq and in Syria. I think there have been close to 100 such attacks since October 17th. And the American response has been anemic, very, very weak. Now, and I know, because we live in the Middle East, that when a country demonstrates restraint, that's interpreted as weakness. And when your adversary sees you as weak, he doesn't sit around and, like you say, look for a kumbaya moment. He looks to take you to attack you and to destroy you. And that's exactly what the Iranians are doing. Not only are they doing it to the American bases, which is, by the way, why those carrier task forces were sent to the Eastern Mediterranean to begin with, thinking that the Biden administration thought that if they sent the carriers, the Iranians would stop. Well, they haven't. In addition, and more than that, they've turned on their proxies in Yemen, the Houthis, who are now trying to shut down. This is what the Houthi government said just the other day. the Houthi rebels, they're not the actual government in Yemen. The Houthi rebels said their goal is to shut down international commerce in the Red Sea by shutting down the Bab el Mandab, the entrance to the Red Sea, which is opposite Yemen. So, and the United States has forces there, naval forces that have, for example, shot down ballistic missiles sent by the Houthis against Israel in Eilat. But just I think yesterday, the day before, the Houthis took another ship that was bound for Ashdod, and maybe another one. That is a direct result of the weakness that the Biden administration is projecting in this part of the world. On the one hand, they send, powerful nuclear aircraft carriers. On the other hand, they don't react when their own bases are attacked by Iranian and Iraqi proxies. The Iraqis are also under the Iranian control. So it's this lack of a clear policy. It's this reactive. It's not even reactive foreign policy because the Americans are not reacting. They're just turning the other cheek. It's something really incomprehensible, and it's very, very dangerous. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but if this weak leadership continues in Washington, the prospects for our region are not encouraging. I have to tell you, Israel right now is probably the only strong actor that's actually taking measures against this in the region. But there are other adversaries. We talked about Hezbollah. The Turks are a problem. The Chinese are beginning to insert themselves here. And of course, the Russians have been not exactly acting for stability in our region. And I think Prime Minister Netanyahu had a very long conversation the other day with Vladimir Putin about this. I understand it was not particularly amicable. But anyway, so the situation is very troublesome, and we need to pray that in the next 11 months before the American elections, before hopefully the Republicans take control, that more damage won't happen along the lines of Afghanistan and what's already gone on here in recent months.
So as we approach the end of our interview, I want you to help explain me, to clarify a certain topic. We see the Biden administration acting in a very appeasing way towards Iran and really not trying to fight with them and not responding to all the hundreds of attacks that were done on American bases in Iraq and Syria and in all of the areas surrounding Iran on one hand. But on the other hand, they have a very hawkish approach to other regimes they see as autocratic, like Russia, right? And some rhetoric that they have said about China. Why is that contradiction? Why are they talking in a specific manner to Iran, but in an entirely different way to Russia?
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people think, we didn't talk about this, but today, and I'm here in Washington today, and today there's going to be a vote in the House of Representatives to begin in the Rules Committee to authorize what's called an impeachment inquiry against the Biden administration, the Biden family, really. And maybe within 24, 48 hours, the matter will be put to vote in the full House of Representatives, in which case an impeachment inquiry, not actual impeachment, but an inquiry into impeachment will begin. That's all about the corruption of the Biden family. Monies, millions of dollars, maybe close to $50 million that the Biden family took from people or organizations in China, in Russia, in the Ukraine, in Kazakhstan. And a lot of people are asking whether the money that the Biden family took from these governments and these organizations may compromise the president's own decision-making, policy-making towards these governments, and some of them were the enemies of the United States. The Chinese are really an adversary, and the Biden administration has acted with really incomprehensible restraint and to direct threats by the Chinese to the American homeland, like with the spy balloon that you all remember a few months ago, with the Chinese attempts to assert exclusive control over the South China Sea, where they are confronting directly the Filipinos and the Vietnamese and others that have an interest in that part of the world. The Chinese are openly contesting American interests in also in Latin America, throughout Latin America, right in the Americans' backyard. 3,000 military-aged Chinese crossed into the United States illegally recently, and God knows what they're up to, and they're still in the United States. So this this lack of a coherent foreign policy vis-a-vis the Russians or the Chinese or in our region or in Latin America really is causing a lot of concern by American allies, not only Israel, about the direction of American foreign policy and what that means for the safety and security of the world at large. We are in a very, very volatile period of history. I have no idea how it's going to turn out. I pray God, especially on this festival of Hanukkah, that the world will not erupt into another worldwide conflagration. But with this kind of leadership, or rather, I should say, lack of leadership from the Biden administration, the chances of that happening are increasing daily.
We'll pray for the best outcome for the American-Israeli relations. Was with us right now in our digital studio, Marc Zell, Chairman of Republicans Overseas. Thank you, Marc.
Thank you, Michael. And again, warm greetings for Hanukkah Sameach. Happy Hanukkah. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. You are watching the Tov Jewish News channel. Please subscribe to us on all of our social media platforms. Thank you. Have a nice day.